Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am with you on this Sunday, the last Sunday of 2025, Sunday, the 28th of December in this year of 2025. And I am recording this in very beautiful and dark Escazú, Costa Rica. And lots to say this week. So the big news is the full moon at the end of the week and the Mercury transition, the transition that Mercury is making. So as you well know and have heard me say 1,000 times ad infinitum, is that Saturn and Neptune are at the end of Pisces and they are moving into Aries next year. So the planets are going to be making their transitions out of signs that are squaring Saturn and Neptune, such as where Mercury is right now and where we've been talking about the sun coming out of Sag going into Capricorn. And every time they do this, a planet does this, they are going to square Saturn and then Neptune. And so we are seeing this again this week when Mercury makes its final passage out of Sagittarius and squares Saturn, which is the wee hours of Tuesday morning, 2:15 a.m. Mercury in Sagittarius to Saturn in Pisces. And remember, Mercury did the retrograde thing and took a little longer to get to the end of Sagittarius. And the Sun and Mars and Venus have already made this journey. And now Mercury, which is the quick planet, will go to square Saturn, and then it will square Neptune on Thursday, New Year's Day, at 8:33 a.m. Eastern Time. And so it's going to make this, it's the final inner planet to make this transition. And the other inner planets, as they move along here, are not going to enter Pisces and conjunct Neptune before Neptune goes into Aries. So this is the last hard aspect that they're making. This is the last hard aspect that Mercury is making to Neptune while it's in Pisces. Okay, so this is all about the energy of, well, we're finished with this over here, but we're not quite there yet over there. Okay, so there's the in-between. We're in this, again, liminal place, as all of 2025 was and early 2026 will be until at least Neptune makes that transition at the end of January. And what we're feeling is anything where Neptune and Saturn are getting touched by squares such as this, or even when the moon is passing through from sign to sign and it's making aspects to Saturn and Neptune, and then eventually will conjunct them, as it's moving around the zodiac. It's saying, we're not quite there yet. And we're pretty finished with all this over here, but not quite. We're not finished and we're not quite there. So we're really in the in-between liminal space. And you can call this the void. You can call this the in-between. You can call this the transition, but that's what it is. And that's what it feels like, because we don't really know what is coming next exactly. We have a feeling. I can give you some descriptions, but we're not talking about the past anymore. This is now becoming yesteryear. So we're not out of yesteryear, but we are not in tomorrow yet either. So Neptune is, getting Mercury, and that's the last aspect Mercury will make before it goes into Capricorn, and that will be hours later. So Mercury will square Neptune, like I said, 8:33 a.m. on Thursday, and then go into Capricorn at 4:11 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. And that is really, you're going to feel that and pay attention to it, because Mercury he's the information guy. He's the guy with the messages. He's the guy that's giving you ideas and thoughts and communication. And we're all overthinking right now because of where Mercury is and how we're feeling all of this stuff and not trying to dwell on it, but at the same time, we're trying to figure it out. We really are trying to figure out what's happening. And we really kind of have to surrender, let go, and allow the trust to step in. Allow ourselves to trust. And we are so ready to be in tomorrow, but we're not quite there yet. So we need to be patient, and we need to be able to let go. We're curious. We want to know what's going to come next. We want to know what's going to happen. We want to know where we're going, because we know we're not staying in the same place. And even if it's only coming up in your sleep, in your dreams, or by listening to me, you have to know that we're headed someplace else. And so this is the last of the 4 inner planets: Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars. That's going to challenge Saturn and Neptune from Sagittarius. And the moon will continue to challenge and connect with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces until they make their transition. But the moon's always doing those things. So one of the things I think is important for right now is to take time to rest, because Saturn and Neptune are in a water sign, and they are leaving the water sign and they're going to a fire sign. And then Uranus, which is not going to go to direct until the 4th of February, it's in an earth sign, and it's going to go into an air sign at the end of April. But this is asking us to rest for now. Rest. Because once this energy picks up speed, which is when Saturn and Neptune go into Aries, which is fire, and Uranus goes into Gemini, which is air, we're not going to want to rest the traditional way, meaning sleep, dream, float, stand on the ground and connect to the earth. And all those are very lovely things, and we can still do them. But the rest quality will be different. And I expect energy to be really high when all of this stuff starts moving into different elements, and we're focused on air and fire, as I said in my lecture about 2026, which you are still welcome to purchase. Just go to my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, click book online, and you can see Astrology 2026, The Rebellion of Fire and Air, and you can purchase it there for $55. And I can send it to you if you write to me as well. And that's deb@debmcbride.com or info@thegoldenastrologer.com. And these are moments when we are really wanting to take advantage of the time, especially now in between week, between Christmas and New Year's, to really take that time and get some extra rest, get some sleep, do something that's restful to us. You know what that is. It might be a massage. It might be going to swim somewhere if you can swim locally, or swim because you're in a warm climate like I am. Right. Those are the things that you might want to take advantage of in this moment, these restful times, because air signs like me know that resting comes from like talking on the phone. And it's not exactly what we would call rest. And maybe we don't really know how to rest, the fire and air among us. And but what my point is that once this transition's made, especially after April, we're going to feel like the definitions of rest are going to change, and it may be more about, our energies are geared up to take action and connect and network, and that kind of stuff might feel better to us and sort of giving us a little more energy, or that might be the respite we need. Or we may not be able to define what the respite really looks like because of so much fire and air. So get some rest. Get some rest. This is a great time to get some rest. And we have so much coming in the new year, and especially February onward. It's so important to really get that deep sense of rejuvenation. Go to your favorite healer. Go to your favorite spa. Those places are going to give you the R&R right now. The other thing that's happening this week before I get into the full moon is that Chiron is going direct. And that is Friday the 2nd of January. And Chiron is direct in Aries. And it's at 9:38 a.m. Eastern Time. And remember what Chiron is. Chiron is the wounded healer in mythology. And so when Chiron goes direct, we expect there to be a certain amount of connecting with where we've been wounded, where we've been healed, what feels raw, what wounds are coming up, and they may surface out of nowhere when Chiron gets stirred up like this. And Chiron is in Aries and has been in Aries, and Chiron is really not going to be touched by Saturn and Neptune for a long, long time, because it's late, it's 22 Aries right now. And the moon has just passed over Chiron today, a little while ago. And honestly, it's probably been a healing day for most of you out there. And as I sit here on Sunday, I recommend that if you haven't done some healing, maybe now is the time to do that, whatever that looks like for you. And it's good to take Chiron's energy and use it for the purposes of doing some healing. And Chiron's already stationing, right? Chiron's already stationing, and we are connecting with that desire to feel healed and to clear our wounds and step forward into, as Chiron goes direct and step forward into a new day as far as what historically wounds have been and how we define them and how we choose to heal ourselves. Chiron's in Aries. It's the individual. It's the person. It's the I am. Okay? Where has the I, the individual, suffered some wounds for being an individual, for standing in one's own individuality, authenticity, and your soul opinion, your soul, and that's soul, S-O-L-E, not S-O-U-L. Your soul opinion, your soul feeling about something. Where did you suffer for that? We'll say, you know what, I feel this way, and everybody sort of looks at you funny and has something to say about it. And that's really judgment, but you are allowed to have your opinion and your own sense of self. And so where you might have bent yourself into a pretzel to please others, that is where the wound may be. Instead of doing what is right for you and deeply right for you, not in a selfish way, in a self-care way, in an authentic way. What's been right for you may have been twisted because you were trying to please somebody else, such as a partner or parents or somebody that you wanted to stay in relationship with without conflict. Aries is where the conflicts happen, right? So somehow we can't avoid the conflict, even if it's Chiron saying to us, you know what, you got to stand up for yourself and your individuality here and not be afraid to get wounded. And just don't let the wound in. Don't let them bother you. You are who you are, and be proud of that. And so some of those things may surface as Chiron goes direct on Friday. And so just be aware of that and work with that. And any place where you feel you want to get a good healing in, go do that. And, where is the end of Aries in your astrological chart? Where's 22 Aries for you? Where does that reside, in what house? And that's where Chiron will be stationing going forward. Then there is, Chiron stationing, and then there's a full moon. And the full moon is also in cardinal signs. It is naturally, the sun is in Capricorn, because that's where we are right now. And the moon itself, the full moon, will be in the sign of Cancer, of course, because the full moon is always opposite where the sun is, the position of the sun. And so they are at 13 degrees. That will be a full moon, 13 degrees of the sign of Cancer. And it is happening at 5:03 a.m. Okay, on Saturday the 3rd. Now, this is not some any old full moon in Cancer. First of all, the moon rules Cancer, so it's usually powerful. But remember what I said. Everything was marching out of Sagittarius and into Capricorn, right? And so by the time we get to this full moon, the sun is almost halfway through the sign of Capricorn. And so it'll be at 13 degrees, right? Because halfway is 15. And so what do we got? We've got a pile of planets in Capricorn opposite the full moon. Now, they won't exactly be opposite the full moon at the moment of the full moon completely, but they are all sitting there waiting for the arrival of the moon in opposition. And so that's Mercury, Venus, the Sun, and Mars. Now, the planets that are closest to the full moon in opposition, they're close to the sun, is Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars. Mercury is set back because Mercury has not been in Capricorn long enough at that point. So remember, it's going in on Thursday. The full moon is on Saturday. Mercury's only at 3.5 degrees of Capricorn. But that moon is going to oppose Venus, the sun, and Mars. And obviously the sun, because it's a full moon. So it's highlighted. It's not just any old moon opposite Venus and Mars. It's a full moon. And so this brings a relationship-oriented theme into this full moon. So what does that mean for us? Well, first of all, at 13 degrees, Venus will be at 13 degrees or 12-ish and close to the sun. And really, Mars will be on the other side of it at 15. And so really the moon is going to, oppose Mercury first before that. That'll happen on Friday. And then we'll move into opposing Venus on Saturday. And this is all happening in the wee hours of the Eastern time zone. So it'll, trigger Venus, trigger the sun, trigger Mars. And this is all, happening when you're sleeping in that region of the world. Now, of course, if you're in Europe, this is going to happen in the middle of your day, and that's just fine, right? And so Venus will get the opposition at 3:40 a.m. The sun, like I said, there's the full moon, 5:03 a.m., moon opposite sun, and then moon opposite Mars, 7:37 a.m. Expect, if you're in that region of the world sleeping, you will probably have a bumpy night, okay? Especially once it gets to Mars, it's probably going to be, a little agitating. So please be aware of this, and please prepare. Do what you need to do. Maybe don't over-caffeinate yourself on Friday so that you can sleep better on Friday night into Saturday. And this is relationship-oriented. As soon as the moon goes into Cancer on Friday at 8:09 a.m., Eastern time, we're going to be feeling that nudge towards all those planets. And starting with Mercury, it's going to oppose, and it's asking us to look at our relationships. Let it illuminate our relationships. What are they telling us? With everybody, not just personal, intimate relationships. What about our colleagues, our kids, our families? How are we relating to them right now? There's the polarities of the masculine and the feminine because Venus and Mars are involved. And so ultimately, we're going to see major conjunctions at the beginning of January as these three planets are marching together, and Mercury will eventually catch up. But this is very profound, especially since the full moon is opposite all of this. And, they're not exact in their conjunctions, but I would say certainly while we've got a full moon, this is some hot energy. Now, it is a full moon, and when I pay attention to the full moon at 13 degrees of Cancer, I have to look at where it's triggering other parts of the zodiac by 45-degree angle, semi-square. And that's an important aspect when we start to consider famous points like this. And the famous point here is 28 degrees of fixed, which would be 28 degrees of Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and Aquarius. And that brings us to some interesting dynamics, because if you've got a planet there at 28 fixed, you're going to feel this full moon very strongly. right? Of course, if you've got a planet at 13 degrees or the nodes or something at 13 degrees of Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, and Aries, you're going to feel this too. However, 28 fixed is getting triggered, and 28 fixed is where the first eclipse is on February 17th. So I'm wondering if we are going to see some eclipse foreshadowing, shall we say, highlights, shall we say, information that provides us with a glimpse into what could potentially happen in February when we've got the eclipse and 3 days later we have Saturn and Neptune exactly conjunct at the world axis. So I'm very interested in seeing how this plays out next weekend, okay? The following week, which we'll get to next Sunday, the 4th of January, we'll talk all about how these planets, Venus and Mars and the Sun, are going to connect with each other during that week. But suffice it to say, now we can start to get a handle on that energy because of the full moon. And the full moon is a juicy place. It's in the sign of Cancer. We're going to be concerned with security. We'll be concerned with family. We'll be secure in our actions that weekend. You know, you might not feel like taking any risks. Maybe if you're an investor or something, you're going to play it safe and play it cool. Maybe you're going to want to stay home and have guests visit. Maybe you are going to feel like you want to connect with your family on some level. But this is all very Cancerian, okay? And the other planets are in Capricorn, which is business, commerce, patriarchy, responsibility. So, you know, responsibilities around family may creep up. Just the things that you could be considering the next weekend. And then there's also the consideration that our friend Jupiter is in the sign of Cancer, right? So that means the moon is going to eventually join Jupiter, and it's going to make that conjunction to Jupiter at 5:54 p.m. on Saturday the 3rd, after it's all done opposing the planets in Capricorn that morning. So that's a nice little feeling that it's going to connect with Jupiter and be present with Jupiter. And so that might enhance the whole sense of feeling of family and safety and security and those kinds of non-risk things. Although Jupiter likes to be risky and it is exalted in Cancer, we may feel we want to take a little risk later in the day. And so what's going to then be interesting is once those three planets, Sun, Venus, Mars, get connected to each other in a conjunction, as they will do the following week, they are going to eventually oppose Jupiter. And that will happen in a couple of weeks, really, from now. Those planets are going to start opposing Jupiter, and that's another whole story, especially since Jupiter's slower moving planet. It's exalted in its sign where it is right now, in the sign of Cancer. And one at a time, each of those planets is going to oppose Jupiter. There's a lot of activity in early January, which we're going to talk about over the next week and 2 weeks. And so this is something to pay attention to because Jupiter's always expansive. And while Capricorn likes to play it safe and be responsible and dutiful, there may be a splash, a hint of taking a little more of an outward step or risk with Jupiter being in the sign of Cancer and receiving the opposition from all the planets. This is all very interesting. And so I think it's important to stay connected to your feelings because you want to see how you are navigating this Capricorn energy, which is very cardinal, because we're going to be going into very cardinal energy again. May I say it again, that Saturn and Neptune are going into Aries. So pay attention. January, my instinct, my intuition's telling me January is not going to be dull. It isn't one of those ho-hum, back to work, it's a new year, all right, let's start at the beginning, you know. And I'm not one to do resolutions because for me, the astrology speaks for itself. And resolutions, New Year's resolutions, and like last year, remember Mars was retrograde? It was only retrograde a couple weeks and we still had it retrograde to the end of February. That's a big reason to not start something new, okay? People might want to start new things, but we're at the end of this big cycle, right? So I'm all for paying attention to the astrology and where it leads you and where it's taking you and what flow you are in when you are working on, what you want to create in the new year and how you want to create it. So, my advice right now, get some rest. Take as much time as you need to get some rest. Yeah, people are saying, well, my boss is going to expect me to be revved up to come back to work on January 5th. And so you take your rest now, but take some time in the month of January to really settle in, especially if you live in a cold place. It's good to really settle in and get some rest, because you really need this time and really give yourself some time to breathe before we go into something brand new. And whenever you're going to start something brand new, even in life, anytime you're going to start a new cycle, you're going to start a new job, you're going to start a new commute to work, and whatever new things, you want to rest and get your energy up before you step into something brand new, which is what we're doing. So we're starting new this year. We've got January 1st. This week is on Thursday, so we're starting the new year. We're ending 2025 this week. The next time I am present with you on this podcast, it will be a new year. And so we want to take advantage of the energy to rest and recharge now. And recharge while planets are in Pisces, because they really do allow us to do that recharging thing. They allow us to sleep better. They allow us to just sort of find our peace. And peace is an important thing right now. Certainly Pisces is a more peaceful sign. It can be, although I called it kind of brutal a couple weeks ago. But Aries is definitely not. And Neptune going into Aries, there's the warrior spirit, there's the independence. Then we're going to have them in the same sign as Chiron, which is now going direct, right? So let's pay attention to where peace is for us and define what that looks like for us before we step into the new energies of the new year. And I welcome you to visit with me by setting up a session, an astrology session, which you can do through my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, and connect with me by clicking book online and deciding what session you want to have. Maybe you want a Reiki session that clears the cobwebs, breaks the contracts, clears all the old energies out. You can do that. You perhaps may want something more analytical, in that sense that you can do an astrology session with me. And that's all available on my website. You can also spend 3, 6, or 12 months with me guiding you through these new energies that we need to navigate, right? And that would be under expansion mentoring. And you can always write to me, info@thegoldenastrologer.com, deb@debmcbride.com, to ask me more about expansion mentoring and how we can work together. I wish you a beautiful week ahead and a lovely new year. Celebrate, get some rest, take care of yourself, take care of your needs, do something kind for yourself, do something kind for another person, as it is an altruistic time with planets at the end of Pisces. And hang in there during that full moon. Go out and look at it, admire it, let it illuminate you, and just be present for yourself as we move into this new, very exciting year. Thank you so much for listening. Many blessings and much gratitude to everyone, and I will see you in 2026. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful week.